Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all, be worth it now, and that's for sure. Watch me as I rock it team.
Alright, Fight Talk Down Under, episode 44 is brought to you by CMBT Nutrition. Go to cmbt.com.au for all your protein powder, protein bars. Oh, look out, we've got the props this week as well. Check it out.
We've got it ready.
Reload and all your nutrition needs. Of course, go to cmbt.com.au. Use the promo code Justin for 10% off at the checkout. They're huge, supporters of Aussie MMA and huge supporters of Justin. We've seen how far he's gotten, so far in the game. So make sure you give them some love. We're also brought to you by Nutcare. Now, guys, the fact is that 83% of penile injuries do involve a razor. Guys, it doesn't have to be this way. Bare Nuts hair removal cream is much easier and safer than shaving and far less painful and time-consuming than waxing. So join the grooming revolution. Go to nutcare.com.au. Use the promo code FIGHTNEWS for 10% off at the checkout. That's nutcare.com.au, promo code FIGHTNEWS. All right, welcome everyone. You do not need to adjust your television sets. This isn't the MMA guru right here. It's just far too cold in Melbourne right now. It is simply too cold, so I've had to wear a beanie just to get through this episode, even indoors. So fuck Melbourne at the moment. It's disgusting. But that aside, of course, we've got my co-host here. I don't think it's much warmer up in the gong at the moment. Of course, I speak of Justin Van Heerden, the eternal featherweight champion. How are you, mate?
Yeah, no, you're right. It's this morning. I don't know what's happened, but the last couple of days, it's been a case of wake up and it's a little bit chilly in the morning, and then it's been 22, 23 degrees. It's what is this? This is winter. This is amazing. And then today it's taken a turn, and I looked outside. I'm like, oh yeah, it looks like another nice day. Walked outside and hit me with a 3 degrees, and I was just like, nah, this isn't. I don't like this. I might have to ship out back to Queensland. But nah, we're good. We're doing good. We're training. We're doing all the usual things. Ticking off my favorite things: training, hanging out with the little one, talking shit about fights. That's what it's about. That's pretty straightforward.
Now, I've heard on the grapevine that there's a bit of an extra swagger about you at the moment, Lockjaw. While the Alex Volkanovski's obviously on the sidelines having had his surgery. You feel like you're the big dog at freestyle at the moment.
Look, the only champ in there at the moment, putting the work in. What can I say? Elbow surgery and the bloke's on the sidelines. Man, you got another arm. What are you doing? You can do push-ups. Think of all the cool stuff you can do. And this bloke said, my arm's a bit... Nah, but all jokes aside, it's quite nice actually. In a way that, there's a small bit of limelight being shined on me, I guess, when Alex isn't there. But nah, all jokes aside, he's obviously he's the big dog in not only the gym but in the gong as a whole. It's cool. The guy came straight into the gym when he got back, and then had surgery, and now he's on the mend. So it's going to be exciting to see him sort of back in punching things very soon, in 6 weeks or something. I think they said it should be a quick turnaround for him. But it's cool. It's all happening.
For sure. Now, speaking of Volk, of course, we've got a bit of a week's lag here because we didn't manage to pull a podcast together last week, but we will go over UFC 290, break down some of the fights there, and have a bit of a chat about how it all went down. So, of course, the first fight, the first Aussie fighter on the card was Shannon Ross. Obviously suffered a pretty tough knockout loss. Again, it was inside, 17 seconds or something like that? So
it's very quick.
It was a super quick one, unfortunately, which is a bit of a sad one. Obviously, we know that Shannon came through Contender Series. As we know the story, he fought with appendicitis. Suffered a loss in what was an absolute war. Got himself a contract with the UFC, and he's unfortunately now 0-2. So we don't really know where he stands. I suggest he might have had a 2-fight contract to start off in the UFC. But bit of a tough night at the office for Shannon.
Yeah, obviously not how you want your night to go after doing a full camp and getting ready to fight. But, I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes. And especially, as you get to that sort of the top level of the sport, the little things matter, and the little mistakes are often, super costly. And obviously that's what we saw there. You know, you're in a fight in a division that's notorious for, you know, everyone being fast, explosive, powerful, very technical. So, you know, it's more incentive, I guess. I often think about the flyweight division and the heavyweight division as being like two divisions where, you know, you can't really lapse and make like silly mistakes because, you know, like in the heavyweight division, everyone's got knockout power. You get touched, you're going to go to sleep, little gloves. And in the flyweight division, everyone's so fast and explosive. Sometimes, you know, it doesn't take much. One of them shots lands and it's just like, yeah, that's all she wrote. And especially, you know, you can't land an overhand right in a sweeter spot than what we saw Jesus Aguilar able to do on that, you know, against Shannon. And obviously it's unfortunate, but if you're moving backwards in a straight line and your hands are down and you cop a 4-ounce glove to the chin, it's gonna be a pretty short night. But yeah, obviously not the ideal result, not the result that we were expecting or wanting to see. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does next. Obviously, yeah, no idea with what his sort of at with his dealings with the UFC or his contract or anything like that. Hopefully, you know, he gets another fight or something, but I'm sure he'll figure out whatever's next and, you know, just keep pressing on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, like you say, hopefully there is another fight on the contract. We don't really know what the details are, but you know, so far it doesn't look too good, does it? He's 0-2 under the UFC banner. His fights have collectively lasted, I think, just over a minute. So it's yeah, it's not a great start, but yeah, hopefully he does get another bite at the cherry.
Yeah, I mean, but it's, you know, like it's tough though. Like we spoke about this a few times. Like the incentive and to perform is so much higher now than what it was like a couple of years ago. And, you know, the talent around the world that are just waiting for a chance to get in there and compete is just increasing and increasing. And I think on the current like UFC roster, there's like 2,900 odd fighters that are like on the roster. So, you know, from the UFC's point of view and perspective, like, you know, it's no surprise when you're sort of on Twitter and stuff like that, and especially some of these pages that are dedicated to keeping track of the roster and that. There's no surprise when you see after these events like how many people are just, you know, getting chopped and moved on and changed and, you know, switched out or whatever. Like it's yeah, it's a dog eat dog world in there now, especially nowadays. Like, you know, you can't be. Unfortunately, you know, things like that are going to potentially happen, but like it's, yeah, and you know, it puts that extra bit of pressure on, and it's just, I don't know, it's the people that are going to have to, you're going to have to be able to deal with that, because obviously, I don't know, I think, and especially someone asked me about this today, because they were saying, you know, if you know you get signed to the UFC, they're like, how are you approaching those first two fights, whatever your contract is or whatever, and I was like, I think in a perfect sort of scenario, like your first couple of fights, you've got to go out there and like shut people out, like shut them down. You know, you got to make it, you know, whether it's an absolutely dominant unanimous decision or just a straight up, you just go out there and finish people. Like, I think that's going to be the most pressure filled fights that you'll have in your career outside of a world title fight. If I'm honest, I think, you know, that first couple of fights in the UFC, like you've got to go out there and do your thing. Otherwise, you know, the incentive for the UFC to be like, all right, we'll catch you later. It's, you know, they're just going to be like, they're obviously just going to do that.
Yeah, exactly. You got to make an impression first up, don't you? Once you're at that sort of top level, and you know, if you do sort of reel off some wins or at least have some exciting fights early on, that can also save you later on down the track if you take a couple of losses. Right, you get those runs on the board early. You know, can you know, if you sort of endear yourself to the UFC brass early on, it can sort of carry you. So yeah. Anyway, but all the best to Shannon. He's one of the nice guys of you know, of Aussie MMA. So hopefully he's healthy and you know, he can sort of live to fight another day.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Definitely. Of course, yeah, after that, Jimmy Crute jumped in there. It was obviously a bit of a rough start for the Aussies. He's suffered a second-round submission loss to Alonzo Menafield. You know, and obviously in the wash-up of the fight, he took his gloves off, and there was some speculation that he might have been retiring. He's sort of obviously put that to bed, but he did mention that there was a bit of a I guess in his words, an obsession with an unhealthy obsession with the sport. So he needs to sort of take a step back, take some time off, those sorts of things. So it's good to know that he's not retiring, because I think what is he, 26 or something?
26, I believe.
So that's pretty early to be calling it quits. I mean, it's easy to say that from sitting here in in my study, but. It seems pretty early for a talented fighter like that to be sort of pulling the pin, but hopefully he just takes the time that he needs and sort of finds that sort of mental health that he needs, and comes back when the time is right.
Yeah, it's obviously, that's something that needs to be sort of, I guess, like he said, he's identified that there's some stuff that he needs to do, and then he's going to come back and hopefully be in a better place. But yeah, I really like Jimmy, man. He's like one of the nicest people I've met through the sport. So I really want to see him sort of bounce back and, continue to do his thing, because I think he's super talented, and I think he's already done so much at the age he's at, within martial arts and within the sport. So, I'd like to see him come back and just find that sort of same mojo and love for the sport, but not like an unhealthy sort of obsession with it, as he said in his own words. So it'd be cool to see him do that, and I think he's going to do that. But yeah, he's definitely likable, super nice guy. So hopefully we watch him, go and sort himself out and then bounce back and keep doing what he's been doing.
Absolutely. I mean, like, MMA is just an unforgiving sport, isn't it? Like, it's pretty common for fighters to experience burnout, from all that sort of, I guess, the training that you have to do, and then the stress of fighting and those sorts of things. It can really sort of wear on you. So is there anything that you do to sort of keep yourself level? Like, do you have any sort of tips or tricks or, things that you do for yourself to sort of stay motivated and not sort of get burnt out?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, when he said, if you look at his words, where he sort of said about having sort of an unhealthy sort of approach or obsession with the sport. I mean, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely obsessed. Like, I'm constantly like watching fights, constantly thinking about my own fights. Like, even now, like, I'll still watch back like pretty much most of my fights, and I'll still be picking out things that I like want to sort of add to or fix or just start, like, I'm constantly sort of doing that. But I think the main thing is just like is finding a balance for it. Like, you have to be, obviously, I think you have to be in some way you have to be obsessed with the sport, but at the same time, you just got to have other things that you're directing your energy into and that you're directing your focus into to keep you sort of keep that sort of balance. So whether it's simple, like I can balance that with like, just hanging out with my little one and just, we're fighting, doesn't matter. It's not a thing. Like, she couldn't give a fuck if I'm, about what I got going on in fight wise. Like, I'm just dad. Right. So, I can do that, and that kind of balances things out, because, it kind of takes away from just having fighting on your brain 24/7, because it can be like that, right? Like, you go to the gym twice a day, most days, and sometimes, 3-4 times a day, and you're like, there's constantly just on your mind, and you're constantly it's just fighting. So you for sure need to direct it into something else. But I guess probably the biggest thing for me is, video games, gaming. If I'm just gaming and streaming with some of my friends and some of that, like just the banter and because same sort of thing. Like, a couple of my friends that I game with, and I mean, they could not give a fuck that I fight or that, about MMA and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just a couple of guys hanging out, gaming together, just chatting shit to each other, and the banter's back and forth. So, and I think that stuff is good. You need that, like, because it's another way for me to just take fighting and get it out of my brain, not even worry about it. But I'm having like, those essential sort of dopamine hits from just having a laugh with a bunch of people and just, communicating with someone and, just chatting shit. Like, it's just fun. Like, it's just fun. So, and that's a bit of a boost too. So, because it's for sure, obviously, I'm sure everyone has those days where they're just kind of going through the motions with fighting. You come back from a session and you're just kind of like, even if you had a good session or not, you're just like, oh, fuck it, I couldn't really care less. But then about the day or whatever, you kind of just feel a bit like drawn out or whatever. But then, those other little things that you do kind of balance you back out, and then, it kind of works that way. But I think, probably the two biggest things that I use to offset my obsession with fighting and to kind of keep myself level-headed and keep myself motivated and then keep myself in a healthy place with everything is probably, just spending time with my little one and then just chatting shit to people online while I'm playing video games.
Yeah, awesome. I guess it's just balance in life, isn't it? You hear people talk about that a lot, and just finding another outlet. And it sounds like you've got that, and hopefully Jimmy Crute can sort of find that balance in his life as well, and come back to the sport when he's ready.
Yeah.
But of course, later on, Dan Hooker was in there with Jalen Turner. He restored some pride for the Anzacs. It was. A bit of a war in the end, wasn't it? Which we've come to expect from Dan Hooker, but he finally broke the hoodoo, the Jalen Turner hoodoo. Obviously, Jalen almost exclusively fights Anzac fighters, and he has beaten all of them so far. But Dan Hooker has escaped with a split decision win in what was a crazy war. How did you see it?
Yeah, it was a sick fight. Dan Hooker's a psychopath, man. Like, the dude's crazy. But it was cool. It was a sick fight. And I think you're right. Yeah, I think at this point is like whether you're a flyweight or a heavyweight, is it just a case of do you get signed from being an Anzac fighter and then are they just like, all right, you're fighting Jalen Turner? Like, is that just how this works now? It's the fight was exactly what I expected it to be. It was sick. It was, because they're both obviously Jalen Turner's a long, lanky, big guy for the division, and Dan is as well. So. Yeah, it was just going to be crazy to see those striking exchanges. But it was a sick fight, an absolute scrap. And I think I saw Dan put something on his Instagram and he kind of spoke about that. Like, he lives for the moment where it goes from being a sport and turns into a fight, and who can dig deeper and push harder and, get through those sort of exchanges. And that man certainly has done that time and time and time and time again. So, it was insane. It was a sick fight. I was thoroughly entertained by that fight.
Absolutely, yeah, it was a banger. Which, like I said, we've come to expect that from a Dan Hooker fight. So I guess where is Dan Hooker in that lightweight division now? Like, he's won his last two now. I think he's still ranked, right? He's still got to be in the top 10.
He's back in the top 10 now after this fight.
Yeah, okay. So I guess. Yeah, where is he? Like, he probably needs to string together a few wins to really get back into that sort of that sort of top 5 mix, right? I guess, where does he go from here? Who might be sort of a good opponent for him?
Yeah, I think it might be. Yeah, he needs to. I think he's probably, with the way the lightweight division is, obviously it's so stacked and crazy. But like, say you fight, you get another fight against someone else in the top 10, win that, and then call for a fight with someone, who's a bit further up, like, maybe a Benil or the loser of Poirier Gaethje, potentially Chandler, that rematch, there's options there for you to sort of bounce yourself forward. I mean, we're looking at the landscape of that division now. Like, if you go out there and fight someone in the top 10 and then say he fights and calls for a fight with like someone like Fiziev, beats him, that puts you in a really good spot to start, fighting for a number 1 contender spot, or potentially just fighting for a belt. And like, it's weird to me because the top guys in that division at the moment are just fighting each other. Like, it's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, what do you do? And, someone like Sarukian, he's been talking about that. So maybe that's a fight for Dan Hooker to look at. He goes and fights someone else in the top 10 and then calls for Sarukian. Like I said, you got Dariush, it's an option. Where's Gregor Gillespie at? What's that bloke doing? Is he fighting again soon? That might be a fight there.
Is he still around?
I don't know. If he's still there, like, why don't we get that dude, get a fight with that dude going? I mean, obviously, that's another sort of very dangerous lightweight. So, yeah, that is the benefit of the lightweight division, though. It's pretty much in that top 10, top 15, top 10. Like, whoever you're fighting, there's just killers. So if you get a win over anyone, it just boosts you immensely and pushes you forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he's kind of fought everyone, hasn't he? I like the Dariush. That's that's kind of a one that he hasn't fought.
Or for my money, you give him, if Bobby Green goes out and smokes Tony Ferguson, which, let's be honest, is probably very likely. Give me that fight, because Bobby Green ain't shooting no takedowns. So give me Bobby Green versus Hooker. They've been absolute scrap.
Absolutely, yeah. Sign me up for that one. And and then I don't know if he can sort of go on and fight for Zeev as well. That's a fun matchup too. I don't know if there's like a Tiger Muay Thai sort of connection there between those two or not. But that'd be a scrap as well if once sort of Dan fights his way back up to that sort of top 5 level.
Yeah, because Faziv's coming off a loss to Gaethje, and before that he was on an absolute tear. And he obviously fought Riddell as well, so it might be a good option for them to look at.
Definitely. And following that, Hooker versus Turner, there was Rob Whittaker versus Dracus du Plessis. So obviously that was essentially the number 1 contender, a title eliminator for the next opponent for Israel Adesanya. Now, we talked about this one at length last week or last episode, and obviously the UFC would have been hoping for a Dracus du Plessis win, and that is what they got. He's stopped Whittaker I think it was in the second round, wasn't it? And
yes,
so it was somewhat of an upset. I think a lot of people were writing Dracus off, but he just seems to be one of those guys that you can't bet against now. He just seems to find a way. So yeah, Roger, make of your countryman's performance.
Yeah, surprising. I didn't see it. Like I thought, okay, if he's going to win, it's going to be a decision. Like it might be a decision. I didn't think he'd be able to finish Whittaker because who saw that coming? But he went out there and killed it. Obviously, I think this was billed as like a number 1 contender fight. But actually, just before we started recording, I saw Adesanya post something on his story saying that Dricus hasn't accepted the fight for Sydney because he's got for a foot injury or something. And he said it with a lot harsher words, and he was pretty vocal about it. And then and said that Dricus is out, so Strickland's in. So who knows what's happening now with that? We expected Dricus to fight for Israel on Sydney because Sydney obviously that you got to have Israel headline that. Like that's what the plan was, and he's keen. The UFC is keen. So we'll see what happens, but certainly. Looking at it for what it is, if you're looking at the two guys, Dricus coming off a win over Rob Whittaker says a lot more than Strickland beating a guy whose name I can't pronounce. Not because it's a Russian name, just because I don't know who the fuck that guy is. Who is he?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Looking at it, and for all the pay-per-views and all the story and everything like that, you got to throw that fight together between Dricus and Adesanya. But obviously, if that's legit and he's injured and he doesn't want to fight till he's healed, then you're probably going to see Strickland Adesanya in Sydney, and the entertainment of that one at the press conference is going to be insane.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's not much you can do if Dracus is injured, then. That's that, isn't it? If Adesanya wants to fight in September, then he's got to find another dance partner, doesn't he? Because there's not much you can do if the fight is injured. But I mean, Strickland, that's a fun sort of matchup. There's the build up will be fun. I don't think anyone's going to be shooting any takedowns. That's kind of fun. But does it feel like there's a bit of a discrepancy in skills there between those two? Like I feel like that's a pretty obviously Strickland's dangerous. He's done he's got a lot of wins in that middleweight division, but I feel like there's just a gulf in class between those two, skill wise. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you can't just stand up tall and want to strike with Izzy. That's not he stands up tall with his hands here and just kind of paws out and constantly throws walks forward, throws volume, just constantly. Yeah, that's not going to work, man. If you're not mixing in some takedowns or something like that, you're gonna get dealt with. So obviously, I don't know. Looking at it on paper, it's probably a similar result to when Pereira and Strickland fought. Do I see Adesanya catching him with a single shot like that and putting him away? Nah, I see him just landing a fucking sick combination and probably head kicking him into another dimension. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough fight. Obviously, crazy things happen. The sport's crazy, and Strickland's obviously a beast. He's one of the top middleweights in the world, and he's just a funny cunt. But it's stylistically, I don't know. If your approach is to strike with Adesanya, and that's how you want to try and get after it, just strike, and you're not a world-class kickboxer like Pereira, then I don't get that. Unless so maybe I don't know. Maybe he just switches things up, comes out there, and takes Adesanya down, and just goes full wrestling. But who knows? He's also not the biggest middleweight. He's not an overly big guy. Whereas someone like Dricus, he's huge, bro. That guy cuts from like 105 kilos to fight at 85, 84, whatever it is for middleweight. He's a big guy, bro. He's huge. So, I don't know. It's one of those weird things, like skill for skill, striking wise, there's like two people on planet Earth that could probably match up with Adesanya, and that's probably Alex Pereira and maybe John Jones, like on the feet. So yeah, if you don't have like some other attributes or size or something to utilize, it's gonna be a rough night.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, but still, it'd be entertaining. I'll certainly be watching regardless. But I guess where's Robert Whittaker now, right? So he's been clearly the second best middleweight in the UFC for some time. He's just been knocked off that mantle by someone who isn't Israel Adesanya. So, yeah, where is he? Like, he's fought everyone. He's pretty much fought everyone else in the top 5, right? If Strickland's fighting for the title, like, you would have felt like maybe Whittaker versus Strickland might have been a future matchup. What does Robert Whittaker do? Where does he go from here?
I think he's just got to sit and wait and see what happens. Because if he's either got to see what happens with the middleweight division, and then or just get like another fight going straight away. So he just gets his momentum back. Because obviously if like, say, Strickland or Dricus or something like that goes out there and beats Izzy, they'll obviously do a rematch. And then, so you'd have to beat, obviously I'd imagine you'd have to beat the champion twice. And then if you did, then obviously, that opens the door for someone else to slot in. And that, Robert Whittaker could 100% be that guy. But yeah, it's just a weird spot to be in. His other option is you move up and fight at light heavyweight. So, and looking at that division at light heavyweight, it's not many people for the most part in that division mix it up. It's mostly just like everyone just strikes. So, it could be a division where Robert Whittaker could have a lot of success. But at the same time, it's like, I think he really just wants the middleweight belt back, and I think he really wants to fight Izzy to get it and beat him, and there's all that sort of stuff behind it. So it's just a weird spot to be in. I think you just got to sit and wait and see what happens.
Is Whittaker big enough to fight at light heavyweight? I feel like he's not the huge, not the biggest middleweight, right? So yeah, could he bulk up and still be effective at light heavyweight?
I'm sure he could. It just depends on how you do it. Like, are you going to take the time to make it a permanent move, or if you're going to stay how you are now so you can float between two, or but if you're going to actually move up, you almost got to approach it like the right way, and kind of like Jones did, and build yourself up and then get up there and do your thing.
Definitely. And I felt like watching the Dracus fight, Whittaker's probably stuck in second gear a little bit. He seemed to kind of be walking forward and headhunting a little bit. He's only 32, I think. I think he's turning 33 soon. He's been in some wars, right? This guy's fought, he's got north of 30 professional fights. He's had a couple of fights with Yoel Romero that, you don't sort of, you leave a little bit of yourself behind after some fights like that. So, does it feel like maybe he's sort of coming off the boil a little bit? Do you think maybe it was an off night? I guess where do you see him at on that front? Yeah,
who knows? I think he said that, he didn't feel like he was 100, like turned up properly or whatever in there. So, it's just weird. I don't know. It's just a dangerous division and a dangerous sort of place to be in the sport where you're like clearly the second best guy in the division. So you probably, every fight for you really with all these other contenders is a title fight, right? Like it's like a title fight. So I don't know. Maybe it's just the pressure of that, or I don't know, just an off night. You're allowed to have off nights. Everyone has off nights in every capacity. It just happens to everyone in any occupation. But if it happens in this one, there's some massive sort of repercussions that come with it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and I guess, I'm going to, at risk of sounding like a real armchair expert here, maybe I am channeling the MMA guru here today, just talking shit. But, I going into the first fight with Israel Adesanya, Whittaker, he sort of said, after the first fight, with Israel Adesanya, he said that he was kind of overtrained. He'd been sort of training 7 days a week, and, he'd sort of overdone it, and that was sort of part of the reason he kind of felt a bit lethargic and a bit out of sorts in the cage. He then found the sort of balance later on, and he obviously had a better showing against Adesanya the second time. Beat Cannonier and Vittori, I think. Seemed to be sort of recapturing his form. Going into this Dracus du Plessis fight, he mentioned a couple of times in press conferences that he had been training like a maniac for this fight. Now that could just be like, hey, I've been training hard. I'm not disrespecting Dracus, that sort of thing. But that was sort of similar. That sort of set off like a little alarm bell in the back of my mind. I was like, wonder if he's fallen into an old habit here, and maybe he's pushed himself too hard. Because again, watching the fight, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that first fight with Israel Adesanya, where he kind of seemed a bit slow and a bit out of sorts in comparison to the levels that he's normally at. Do you think maybe that could have been a contributing factor?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but obviously, it's hard because you don't know what he was doing in training and stuff like that. But 100%, like, there's a certain point where it's just gonna have a negative impact, and you're just not gonna, you're not gonna perform. So, I'd like to think that he's not fallen back to making those mistakes, but maybe he did. Who knows? Maybe, it's just such a weird thing because obviously we expected him to come out and do what he's been doing to these other contenders and show up, but it was just a rough night.
It was, could have just been a tough night at the office against an opponent who was just on, right? Like Dracus du Plessis just seems to be peaking at the moment, doesn't he?
Yeah, and obviously, like we saw, probably something, a detail that they missed in that fight too. At the end of that first round, when Dricus took him down, like, you got to imagine, man, like that's like 100 and something odd kilos on top of you, punching you and elbowing you in the face. Like, that's gonna throw you for a loop in itself. So how you adjust on stuff like that, and if you're already not up to, you're not feeling the best, or you're not on, like, now, you add that on top of it, it's pretty hard to kind of like find your rhythm and go again.
Definitely. But I guess one fighter who didn't have too many problems finding his rhythm was Alexander Volkanovski. Defended his featherweight title against Yair Rodriguez, and really it was just another clinic, wasn't it? Like, Yair sort of threw up the sort of weird kicks and some of the sort of flashy techniques that he has in his locker, and Volk kind of stayed out of danger, and then eventually put him away in the third round. So what did you make of your teammate's performance?
Yeah, he killed it. It was obviously, just another example of how good his fight IQ is and his ability to make adjustments on the fly within the fight. And then even the finish, like what led to the finish, how he threw the inside leg kick, and Yair Rodriguez countered with a combination that ended with a kick, and then, or threw a kick straight out, to sort of counter. And then, like, 3 seconds, it was like 3 to 5 seconds later, Volk he made that read instantly, and then, leg kicked him, and then stepped through and smacked him with a right hook to the jaw, and obviously, like, sent him packing. So, I mean, it's just an example of preparation. Obviously, he did the work in the lead up in the camp, brought the right people in, and, did the right thing. And then just, being able to just implement that in the fight and utilize he's such a talented fighter. Obviously, he's number one in the world for a reason, pound for pound. But it's just another example of how good his fight IQ is and how he's able to just take away everything from the other person that he's fighting. And that's essentially, it's just a shutout. So, to be expected.
It kind of is at this point, isn't it? That's kind of what the levels that we expect from him. Now, he mentioned sort of after the fight that this was sort of among the most I guess, nervous or stressed he's been sort of going into a fight, just purely because of the weapons and the sort of unorthodox sort of style that Yair brings. I mean, I guess, how did you see him sort of adapting to that? Like, I guess you can probably lift the lid on it a little bit now, right? Like, what did you guys sort of do in camp to sort of prepare for, I guess, a strange fighter like Yair?
But just jump and spin and shit constantly, just fly kicks. I've seen the boys throwing all sorts of kicks. Obviously, bring someone like Carl Van Roon in. He's a world champion in Taekwondo. The dude's an absolute monster. Like, the kicks and everything and the stuff that he does, like, it's insane. So watching the rounds that Volk was doing with someone like him, someone like Blood Diamond, who's super unorthodox on the feet, he does unexpected things, and he'll tell you himself, he's like, if I don't know what I'm going to do, how are you going to know what I'm going to do? So how are you going to deal with that? So, like, you think about all that, and it's the constant rounds. And then, on top of that, it's just rinse and repeat, right? Like getting the rounds in. You got a fat bloke like Brenton Mumford coming in and trying to kick you in the head. Like you're gonna learn to get out of the way, right? So, it was just obviously just that, right? Being unorthodox, throwing things from weird angles, jumping shit, spinning shit, mixing up the kicks, like just taking someone's style and their attributes and what they do, and then, going over it so that, when we're like the boys are moving around with Volk, they could give him like an accurate sort of look as to what to expect from someone like Rodriguez, right? And I think, that's obviously all of that combined was what, led him to be able to just go in there and do his thing and find the holes that he needed to find. And then obviously, find the finish and obviously put him away. But yeah, it's just, at the same time, I'm finding that every time Volk's in camp and preparing for someone, and then, you're doing all this sort of stuff, I'm noticing that, at least for myself, I'm noticing that I'm getting something out of it as well. I'm adding new sort of things and stuff to the arsenal, because you're trying to emulate someone, right? And you're trying to add these little weapons to your game. So like collectively, like that's going to boost things, for everyone, not just help Volko prepare for his next opponent. Like, because that comes back to just everyone being obsessed, right? Everyone being obsessed with giving him the right looks, and then being obsessed with, wanting to sort of add the weapons that guy is going to present to him. So like if you look at the Ortega camp, I think everyone's offensive jiu-jitsu and jumping submissions from random fucking angles just went through the roof. And I think everyone added that to their sort of arsenal a bit. And then the amount of, with the Islam camp, because the amount of wrestling and stuff like that, and, focusing on the wrestling and the grappling and stuff like that, again, everyone's collective wrestling and shit just skyrocketed, because that's just like you were just going. And then in this camp, with Rodriguez, obviously, everyone trying to be unorthodox and throw like crazy shit, like kicks and stuff like that, man. It's like, it's done the same thing. You've added another layer to your sort of game as well. So it's cool whenever Volk's in camp, it's cool and it's exciting, because it's another opportunity to watch the best fighter in the world prepare and then go out there and perform. But at the same time, it's another opportunity to add some cool new shit to the arsenal. So don't worry. Don't be surprised if Taekwondo Justin makes an appearance in the next one.
I was going to say, can we expect some flying knees or spinning elbows or a bit of a rolling thunder or something next time you're in the cage?
Fucking, I got some shit now that'll blow people's mind if I decide to bust it out. So we'll see.
Awesome. So I guess Volk, we've sort of known him from obviously the Max Holloway wins. We've known him for his sort of, the distance management, the fight IQ, the counter punching, that sort of thing. But I think he served a bit of a timely reminder of the wrestling and the nasty ground and pound as well. I mean, that's obviously something that you suffer through on a daily basis there. So yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's another weapon that he brings to the table that sometimes people forget about, right?
Yeah, like he's very well-rounded. He's like the most well-rounded fighter in the world for a reason. Like, and that's the thing, right? If he wanted to come out and put you on your back and just punch your head through the floor, like he can do that and you're not going to stop him. But, obviously he's well-rounded. He can do it all and do it on the feet. And, he's shown like he's got a well-rounded game. So, but like, yeah, for sure. Like, especially at featherweight, none of these guys would be able to stop him if he just wanted to come out and wrestle you, take you down and punch your head through the floor. Like you're going to have a shit time. You're not going to do it. You're not going to deal with it. So, which is kind of, if the fight with Ilya comes to fruition, that's kind of what I want. I want Volk to just squash him, just fucking bash him, hurt him on the feet, take him down, and then just ground and pound him through the floor, and just like let him know, like, there's a whole nother level, there's a whole nother ball game.
Definitely, yeah, that'd be an interesting one. Now, I guess, what's your gut feel? Is Ilia Topuria next? Is it got to be Islam next? What do you feel like is next?
I want to see Islam next. Like, I think everyone in the world wants to see that rematch, and Islam and him are chirping each other on Twitter. So hopefully that gets made. Obviously, yeah, in the fight with Ilia, it's kind of like Ilia's obviously a talented fighter, and he's on a bit of a tear in the UFC and stuff like that. But it's like, even from a non-biased sort of point of view, like just from a fan point of view looking at it, do I want to see a guy that stands kind of short side on with a narrow stance that mostly boxes to stand in front of Alex and try and fight him? Not really. That's why this matchup with Rodriguez was so enticing, because and you want to see what happens, because the dude's so crazy. And even when Volk had him hurt, like there was that little bit of a pause, like, oh, because this dude might still throw like a flying knee or a spinning elbow or a fucking 720 roundhouse rolling thunder kick. Who knows? So that's cool. And with Ortega, it was the same thing. You don't know. Like at any point, this guy could just throw up a submission or do something. So looking at it like that, like obviously we want to see what happens in a fight with Islam, like because now, like we saw the first fight, and both guys are so good, both guys are so talented, and they're just absolute monsters in their respective divisions. So a second fight with Islam is much more intriguing than I think any other fight at the moment. So yeah, I definitely want to see that, because I want to see how Islam adjusts, knowing that this guy's really hard to wrestle and take down and keep down. But at the same time, what will Islam and his team try and capitalize on? They might, what are they going to do? And then at the same time, Volk's felt you in there now. He's made his reads in there with you. He understands what to expect and what to feel. So how's he going to adjust, and how much better is he going to be this time around? Because he's got such a ridiculously good fight IQ, and then he's obviously now he's fighting you for the second time, and he knows what he can exploit. Like if you look at the second fight with Holloway, obviously there were some factors going into the fight with, like, you started waking him up the night before the fight and shit like that and all this sort of stuff. But, and then, that all sort of played a factor, but, he wasn't happy with his performance in that fight, and then knew that he was going to be able to go out there in the third fight and be, levels better, and showed people that the second fight was a bit of a fluke. So, do I think that that's going to happen with Islam in the second fight? 100%. I feel like he's going to be able to come out there and show out and, shut him down completely.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, that's got to be the, like, for us, Aussie fans, like, that's got to be the fight, right? For fight fans in general, actually, that's got to be the one. That's the one that everyone wants, and particularly since you, squashed my enthusiasm for the Ilia Topuria fight. I sent you a message on the day, on fight day, and I was like, oh, check it out. Topuria's there. They're facing off. That's kind of a fun matchup, isn't it? And you're like, no, it's not. I was like, okay, I guess it's not. Hopefully he fights Islam then.
But I can promise you, if you want to stand in front of Alex and box with him, and that's how you want to approach the fight, and you're so confident and you think you're going to knock him out, like, go do it. Man, I've tried, bro. I've tried standing there and just standing in the pocket, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to get hit anyway. Let's stand in the pocket. Let's go. Doesn't work. Moving around, being flashy with footwork, trying to use it, doesn't work. Trying to wrestle a dude, doesn't work. Trying to grapple a dude, doesn't work. So good luck if you want to box with him. If you're going to just box and stand, and you stand pretty side on and you're heavy on that front leg and you're walking forward, yeah, that's cool when you were fighting someone like Josh Emmett, who just stands heavy, front-footed, flat-footed, and just throws overhands. But it's not going to work against Alex. Tell that now.
Does anything actually work? Have you tried, like, running him over in your car or anything?
Look, I haven't hit him with a car yet, but I'm sure that'll work. Outside of maybe I got to bring like a bat with me or something. I don't know if I can hit up, if Elon Musk or someone, Jeff Bezos, like that. You want to do some cool shit with your money. You want to give me some adamantium, some Wolverine type shit, so that when I punch Volk, it's like a steel fist. I don't know. But outside of that, like, good luck. It's just fucked. It's fucked.
It's just fucked. It is just fucked. Well, we'll see. We'll just see how fucked it is for Islam or Ilia next. But of course, on the UFC 290 card was supposed to be Jack Della Maddalena. He was supposed to have a bit of a marquee matchup with Sean Brady. Obviously, Sean had to withdraw due to the elbow injury. He was then replaced by Josiah Harrell, who then had a bit of an adverse finding in a brain scan ahead of the fight, which is pretty scary, but it's probably obviously for the better that fight didn't go ahead. So in the end, he fought what was his name, Basil Hafez, I think. So this weekend just gone, who was a UFC debutant. I think was he undefeated? I can't remember.
I think it was 8-0 or something like that. 7-0, 7-0.
So undefeated debutant. Gave Jack a bit of a torrid night out. Obviously a bit of a lay and pray sort of style, but he troubled him with the wrestling, but Jack's managed to get away with a split decision win. Obviously did the more damaging shots, but yeah, what did you make of the fight and Jack's performance?
Yeah, I think he won the fight even as a non, like taking those spin that he's an Aussie fighter and that put that bullshit aside. Like looking at the fight, man, he did more damage. He won the fight. Definitely, yeah, it was an argument for it being a close fight. I guess, but he won, right? Like he did a lot more damage. I think he outstruck him 4-1, or something like that. Like it was like 4-1 that he outstruck him, and getting a takedown and having 2 minutes of top control and not doing damage, like how does that? I don't know, man. People are weird. And I even saw someone like Justin Gaethje being like, "Oh, I don't think that Jack won this fight" or something like that. Brother, you don't wrestle, you don't grapple, you get in there and punch on and like to be violent and smash people's faces in. So I get he's your teammate, but how can you look at that and go, nah, the damage doesn't matter. He had control time. Like it's weird. But at the same time, if like there was a couple of times, Jack dropped for the guillotine a bunch of times. And I was talking to Jared about this. Like, I had to walk away while I was watching it, man. Like the amount of times he dropped back for a fucking guillotine. Like, I get it. You got Rod Coster in your corner, but you're not here to drop to guillotines and, pull a guy on top of you that clearly just wants to hold on to you and be on top of you and just be heavy on top. Like, what the fuck are you doing? So it was no surprise when in the corner between rounds 2 and 3, Ben Vickers was very animated. Like he was going off. Like it was insane. But yeah, Jack come out in that third round and popped off again, went to like, look, he really come out there to finish the fight, like, which is what you want to see, come out for a third round. And he had old mate hurt and, attacked her rear naked and was like, there's a lot happening, but, it was just but like we kind of spoke about this too. You got to factor in the guy had so many opponent changes in a short amount of time. He cut weight twice in like less than a week or in a week or whatever. So, all those things factor in. So, but I don't know. I still think he did enough to win. He did a lot of damage. And, there's no, like, it doesn't hurt the other guys like Basil's stock that he, didn't win because it was on short notice, 5 days notice. He's a big guy. He obviously had a rough weight cut. But, he still, even there was times there where Jack had him against the fence and was throwing combinations. And most times in those situations, you see people shy away and try exit out or whatever. And that's when Jack's catching them with shots. But there's a few times where Basil just stood his ground and threw bombs back, So there was still like parts of the fight that were like, where this guy was like trying to, win the fight. But for the most part, it was just, you can't just lay on top of someone and think that you're going to win a fight. Like those days are long gone. Depending on where you fight and depending on who it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think like judges and even sometimes fans get sort of sucked into this control time narrative a little bit. Like, when it looks like they're sort of winning the majority of the fight by controlling their opponent, it's not exactly what's at the top of the scoring criteria, is it? It's damage and effective striking and grappling. And sometimes the definition of effective striking and grappling gets a bit sort of muddied in there. And I think that's probably the case with this one, with sort of people being divided on whether Jack Della won or not.
Yeah, even like there's times where the guy was just on top of Jack holding on and Jack was kind of like punching him in the ribs, like from the bottom, like almost just holding on, being heavy. And Jack was like landing shots to the body, just like even those little just rabbit punches to the body. It's not damaging, obviously, and not like, almost not going to keel over and be like, oh, I'm done. But at least that's more effective. That's, in my mind, that's better than the guy just being like this and just holding on and like not doing anything, not trying to damage or do anything. So I don't know, man. Like, I think that I'm someone that likes to fucking break people down. That's like, I'd prefer that a lot of times than getting a finish. Like, obviously I'm out here finishing people, but I like breaking someone down and, taking them down and wrestling them and just making them work and just sucking out their energy and then just, beating on them until they eventually either quit or just crumble. Like, but even for me, like, I just, looking at that dude getting a takedown, getting a position and then just not utilizing it. It's like, man, get the fuck out of here with that. Like, try and hurt people, try and win the fight, like come out there and try and win. You know, not saying that he wasn't trying to win. Obviously, he was trying to win. It was like the biggest fight of his life, and he was on. You know, he was coming out there to win. I'm sure he didn't come out to lose, but yeah, I just feel like you can't just hold on and think that you're going to win fights. It's not how this works.
So do we put the Brady fight back together now? Like, does Jack sort of get a bit of a pass for the the double sort of fight week, double weight cut, that sort of thing, or does it look like maybe we've sort of exposed a bit of an Achilles heel? We know that Brady's he's a physically strong guy. He's a good grappler, those sorts of things. Yeah, I guess where does it sit?
I mean, that's a fight he wants for Sydney. So whether they do that or not, I'm sure. Just give the guy, if he wants to fight Brady, then give him Sean Brady. But it's not so much that wouldn't say that he's got an Achilles heel. I think he's a well-rounded mixed martial artist. I think he's got good enough wrestling to, do his thing. Like I said, he stuffed a lot of old mates takedowns, and he was really good with his defensive wrestling. But there was just a couple of times where he dropped for a fucking guillotine. Fuck knows why. But he's smart enough to know that doing that a few times was pretty silly, because he made a joke about it afterwards when he was talking about fighting in Sydney. He said something along the lines of, he wants Sean Brady in Sydney and someone's getting guillotined or something like that. So obviously, he knows that he's, he can't be doing shit like that. So, but outside of that, really, I think old mate got outside of that, he only got a couple of takedowns where he actually, worked and got a takedown. It wasn't like Jack just dropping down for a sub.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I guess we can, put that one together. But if he wants to turn around in Sydney, I don't know if Brady's going to be fit. I think he might have had surgery on that elbow, didn't he? So he might be off for a little while. But yeah, it'd be good to see him back in there, sort of refreshed and fit and firing again. Jack Della, that is. So obviously this weekend we've got Josh Coolabau in action against Lerone Murphy. It's a fun matchup. Yeah. Murphy's on a bit of a tear in the UFC. He's undefeated. Obviously Josh is also on a tear in the UFC. I think he's only got one loss on his record himself. So, how do you see this matchup?
Sick fight, man. Obviously, Josh is like a good friend, and pretty well a teammate as well. Obviously, we train together heaps. So, he's super talented. And he's gonna, this is a sick fight. This is a good fight for him to propel himself forward immensely in the division. But Lerone's no slouch, man. Dude's super talented, and when ACB did their card here back in the day in the Gold Coast, his coach was actually, was part of the event. I think he had fighters on the event, but also he was, involved in the event. And I remember the week after that event, because, there was they stayed in the Gold Coast up for a couple of days. And I got to grapple and move around with Lerone a little bit, and kind of, just see him hit pads and stuff like that, and watch him kind of just do his thing. Yeah, he's super good, man. That was before he was even in the UFC, right? So it was it's no surprise that he's out there doing his thing, and he's got a really good team behind him, and his coach is obviously, he knows what he's doing. Look at the proofs in the pudding, right? And Carl Prince, his coach, isn't, they're not missing. They're finding the mark, right? So this is exciting, man. You got two super dangerous prospects who at featherweight don't have losses. Obviously, Coolabau's only losses to Jalen Turner on short notice at lightweight. So, it's basically you're looking at it. It's two dangerous, undefeated prospects, both on a tear in the UFC. Coming together and colliding, and it's going to be insane, man. It's a sick fight. Stylistically, it's a cool fight, but yeah, I definitely think Coolabau's got all the tools to be able to, find the opening and sort of win in exciting fashion, especially on the feet, because as good as Lerone is, and as technical as he is, he's got that thing that you see from a Michael Chandler or a Justin Gaethje, where when they get hit, they got to get one back. And, it doesn't matter if you're technical and good. If you let that factor in a few more times, or you step forward a bit too far, or you angle out at the wrong time, or you just want to sit on a shot at the wrong time. Next thing you're copping a punch or a shin or an elbow or something to the face, and that's it. That's all she wrote. So I definitely feel like there's things that Coolabau could exploit. So yeah, it's obviously not an easy fight. It's not an easy fight for either guy, and stylistically, it's a very technical, high level fight. But I'm excited, and I think Coolabau's gonna go out there and smoke him.
Yeah, sounds good. Is Coolabau ranked at the moment? No.
Nah, but if he wins this fight, it's hard for me not to see him get be pushed into the rankings.
That was going to be my next question. Yeah, this probably gets him in, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a big fight. So if he goes out there and dominates Lerone, especially if he finishes him, like, what are we talking about? Then he's going to be fighting someone in the top 15. Because if you look at him, his fights in the UFC, obviously the Turner fight, that was a lightweight, short notice, so that doesn't matter. But then you look at his fights at featherweight, he had a draw against Charles Jourdain, which shouldn't have been a draw. He won that fight. He landed more shots. It shouldn't have been a draw. And then obviously he smoked Shailan Odembeki, and then there's a Korean bloke that he fought whose name escapes me, but beat the shit out of him too. And then obviously in February we watched him submit Malsic after he got his doodle kicked into another dimension. So so the dude's just he's fucking dominating people, and now obviously and now he's put away Malsic in his last fight. So yeah, you can expect that with these types of performances like that. It's no secret why he's gonna get you're gonna keep propelling forward. That's what we spoke about before. Like, that's what you need to do, right? You need to put on exciting fights, and on top of that, if you're putting people away, then fuck yeah, you're gonna get everything that you want.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully he puts another person away, and just keeps on moving forward, because he's a nice guy, Josh, and he's a good fighter. So it'd be good to have another Aussie in the rankings.
Nice guy is a bit of a stretch. That's a bit of a stretch, but definitely a good fighter. Definitely a good fighter.
Yeah. All right, we might cut that out.
He's going to be a dad very, very soon. I'm pretty sure it's like the due date is like very, very soon. So it might be like August sometime. So, shout out to Josh, right? And shout out to his partner Sarah. Letting him go out there and punch someone's face in before the baby comes. Yeah,
well, evidently his doodle recovered from the kick in his last fight.
It seems that way.
It would appear so. So anyway, moving on from that. We have one Friday Fights 26. Of course, I've got Lisa Kiriakou from Absolute MMA in Melbourne. She's the Hex flyweight champion. She's making her one debut against Nat Wonder Girl, which is actually kind of a big matchup. Like, Nat's a pretty big star in one championship, so it's kind of interesting that Lisa's been given her first up, particularly on the Friday Fights platform. And it's kind of an interesting matchup. Of course, I do have to mention it's live and free on the 7+ app. It'll kick off about 10 p.m. on Friday night. So before anyone asks, I still get asked this on a daily basis. How do I watch one championship? 7+ app. So you just have to download the app, and that's it. You can click login with Facebook, click login with Gmail, whatever. That's it. There's no subscription fees, nothing, no strings, live and free. 7+. Okay, let's get that clear first. And of course. Yeah, so Lisa is fighting Wonder Girl. It's an interesting kind of matchup because Wonder Girl's obviously got the Muay Thai background. She made her MMA debut just a year or so ago, and she won by submission, which was a little bit of a shock at the time, but the opponent was a little bit limited. So we haven't really got a sort of a read on where the grappling skills are. We know that Lisa likes to grapple and wrestle and those sorts of things. So, what do you make of Lisa sort of having a go at one championship?
Obviously another Australian fighting on the top level. So I'm gonna put my own personal feelings aside, and it's cool. It's cool that she's fighting in one championship. Hopefully she can go out there and do her thing and fly the Australian flag, get a dub. Tough first fight to have. Obviously, Wonder Girl's an absolute beast. And looking at it stylistically, Lisa's got her style is very focused on pushing people up against the cage and, just grinding them out against the cage. And obviously, that's sort of something that she's done in the majority of her fights, or look to do in the majority of her fights. But, like you sort of touched on there, like doing that against someone who's, a very skilled, she's got very skilled high-level Muay Thai. Like, do you want to, clinching up with someone like that isn't a walk in the park, right? Like, I'm imagining that you're going to cop some knees, some elbows, and everything else in between. But it's not an easy fight, but it's definitely not a fight it's not a shutout, right? Like, it's not a fight that she can't win. And obviously, I think mixed martial arts wise, she's obviously more experienced in you know, been doing that pursuit a lot longer. So yeah, it's just going to be, and for that division, right? You know, what is it? Because it's obviously, well, it's straw weight in one, but it's like 57 kilos or whatever it is. You know, she's pretty big for that division, right? Like she's, you know, so it's if she can, you know, find her success with that sort of stuff, then yeah, I've no doubt she's going to have the, if that sort of her pursuit in the fight is to grind out against the cage and clinch up and, you know, dirty box and just do that for 3 rounds, like, and you know, then she should be able to do that and you know, use her size and kind of just rely on that. But definitely, if she thinks that, if her and her team think that the approach is to like open the exchange on the feet and just make it like a kickboxing fight and not factor in the fact that it's a mixed martial arts fight, that's gonna be a rough night in the office, right? I don't think anyone wants to recommend doing that, right? Like that's probably not the avenue to victory in my mind. If I'm Simon Carson and you know, some of those other flops that are in her corner, then I'm going to tell her to come out there and take this girl down, punch her really hard in the face, elbow her, look to grind her out against the fence, you know, take her to the middle, you know, even take her down in the middle and just kind of like wear her out, right? Use your size, damage, and then look for a submission. But yeah, it's an interesting fight, right? Like, because it's like how. Yeah, because we don't know what to expect from her opponent either. Like you said, like we don't know what's her level of ability in the other areas of mixed martial arts, like with wrestling and great. Like we don't know, right? Like we're seeing someone who's obviously very experienced on the feet, who got a submission, like you said, but like that doesn't tell us too much, right? Like we're kind of, you know, she might come out there and they might exchange on the fence, and she might be all of a sudden she's just throwing the wrestling in there, and or she might push the action against the fence, or she might look to take it down or whatever, and then we'll be sitting there like going like, what the fuck is going on here? Like we'll be confused, and everyone will be like, and you know, and that might even lead to the fight, you know, taking a shift or whatever, and maybe Lisa will find success on the feet, because you know, who knows, right? It's just so many sort of factors that come into it, but. Obviously, yeah, it's good to see another Aussie fighting on the world stage. So hopefully she can go out there and get a win and keep the momentum of Australian MMA going.
Absolutely. I mean, like Nat's a you know, tall and rangy sort of fighter in that division, and so you would think that Lisa's going to have a bit of a strength, you know, sort of a bit of an advantage in the physicality there. But you talk about the cage work that she likes to do, but this fight's actually in a ring, so. How much of a complication do you think that might be? Because I actually interviewed Lisa the other day, and she mentioned that the ring is a little bit of a, you know, it's a different dimension, right? Because you can't sort of press up against the cage, otherwise you're going to fall through the ropes. They do use 5 ropes in one championship, so there is a little bit of a barrier there. But typically it's going to be difficult to sort of press someone up against the ropes and take them down. Yeah, so I guess I don't know if you've fought in a ring before, but yeah, how much of a complicating factor do you think that might be for the wrestling?
Yeah, 100%. That makes a big difference. So you don't have that steel cage to sort of press your opponent into, but at the same time, it's a, you know, for Lisa's sort of style too, if she does get Nat and like kind of put the pressure on and guide her back into a corner though, yeah, you know, that's going to be even worse, right? Because you don't have a flat surface that flexes a little bit that you can kind of, you know, utilize to sort of get yourself out. If you're in that corner and you're getting pressed against the corner and you're getting punched and elbowed and kneed, and, you know, it's a lot harder to get out. And, you know, it's, it's both, right? It's on the ropes, it's going to be harder for you to control someone and just grind them out there. But at the same time, if she's able to like press her into the corner and, you know, clinch her up in the corner and be gritty and just be punching her and throwing knees and stomping on feet and doing all that sort of stuff, like it's very hard to get out of that position, especially if, like we're saying, she's probably going to have a strength advantage.
Definitely. Now, yeah, hopefully Lisa can sort of get the job done for Australian MMA. But one has actually booked Wonder Girl for a fight in September already. She's fighting Zhong Jingnan in a modified boxing fight. So it's on September 30th. Does it feel a little bit? I don't know. Is that kind of a bit presumptuous? Or do you think that maybe one is expecting sort of Wonder Girl to get the job done here against a debutante?
No, I think not. Obviously, I think they're expecting that, you know, she's going to go out there and do her thing. But at the same time, I think when they're doing this sort of stuff, and obviously because there's obviously the Muay Thai, there's the kickboxing, and then there's the grappling and the MMA, and now obviously like you said, the boxing and stuff like that. Like, I think they look at it as separate entities. You know what I mean? So I don't think that them booking her for that fight in September has any sort of. It's not. I don't think it's them going, oh, she's going to smoke this chick. Like, let's get her a fight in September. I think like she's got an MMA fight now, and then she's got a modified boxing fight in September. So, and it's like two separate things, right? Like, I don't think you can. It'd be silly to sort of factor if someone's got 4 wins in a row in MMA and then they're going to have a kickboxing fight. It'd be silly to factor those 4 wins in MMA into them coming into a kickboxing fight, if you know what I mean. Like, I think I like how they kind of have that approach, right? Like, especially when you have some of these athletes that are dipping into sort of different sort of avenues. So, and the same sense, even for the similar disciplines, right? Like if you're fighting in one and you've had like 3 kickboxing fights in a row, and now you're fighting, I don't know, Nikki Holskin in Muay Thai, the kickboxing stuff doesn't really fucking matter, right? Like we're talking about Muay Thai now. And the same thing with then transitioning back to MMA and then with grappling or whatever. Like, I think it's cool how they kind of do that, right? They have all the different sort of things there. And obviously in that market, especially the main sort of base with Asian audiences and stuff like that, like they want to see all that shit, right? So and that's the thing, right? You have to have that approach where you kind of keep it separate. So I don't think them booking her for September is like them going, oh, she's going to smoke, Lisa. I think it's just like, this chick obviously wants to be active, wants to be busy, and they're like, yo, do you want to box in September? And she's like, yeah, sweet. And I'm sure if they're like, yo, do you want a Muay Thai fight in October? She's going to be like, yeah, cool, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fair enough. And speaking of boxing fights, of course, we have George Kambosos versus Maxi Hughes on this weekend. So George is obviously coming back from a couple of losses to Devin Haney. Maxi Hughes is 26-5-2. His record is. I think there's like an IBO title perhaps on the line or something like that.
The Sun Belt, bro.
One of those titles. Yeah, but I don't think it's a particularly important one. But anyway, it's George Kambosos back in the ring. What do you make of the matchup? And can he kick off another run?
I like it. It's a good fight for him to come bounce back after the fights with Haney. And I've been keeping tabs on a bunch of stuff that he's been putting up in some of the training footage and sparring. And obviously sparring, you're not really going to see too much. Like, they kind of keep that shit under wraps. But I've been talking to a few people that I've sort of connected to him and stuff like that. And and he's looking the goods, man. So I'm excited. He seems pumped up, seems refreshed. So yeah, it's a good fight for him. Obviously, like all these fights, and especially especially boxing, right? Like, there's not another sport where a puncher's chance is more apparent than in boxing, right? So, it's not one of those things where I can just be like, oh yeah, Kambosos is going to come in there and smoke this dude. He probably is, and I hope that he does, but I'm sure he's still got to be disciplined, still got to be on point, because like we said, one punch, that's all she wrote, especially in boxing. So yeah, it's cool. It's a cool fight for him too. It's definitely a smart fight to do. But we're not surprised by that. Boxing is a bit better with stuff like that than, or I guess utilizing I wouldn't say it's a sort of a tune-up fight for him, but it's kind of a tune-up fight, if you know what I mean. Like, it's a good fight to kind of like get your momentum back and go, okay, cool. Like, let's just get a win. Let's get this fight in, get some more ring experience, get a win, and then start building back up towards fighting, for all those belts again.
Yeah, they do sort of build up a bit slowly in boxing, more so than other sports. So yeah, hopefully this is the start of another run for Kambosos. He's a fun character and a good fighter, so it'd be good to see him in some more big name fights. But of course, we'll be back next week to talk about the wash up from that fight. Of course, Kulabao's fight and Lisa's fight as well. We'll answer some questions as well. So if you have any questions for us, hit us on our Instagram page at Fight Talk Down Under, or our individual. Contact details are on the screen below here if you're watching on YouTube. And of course, if you haven't already, like and subscribe. YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Fight News Australia, and iHeartRadio. Lockjaw, what do you want to take us off with?
Probably just looking at the landscape for Aussie MMA at the moment, especially regionally. Like, shout out to all the fighters, promoters, and everyone like that, man. Because if you look at what's coming up with Hex's card, with Eternal Sydney card, with Beatdown Promotions, with their next event, like, fucking Aussie MMA is skyrocketing, right? Look at some of these fights that are being put together, and look at some of the talent that's going to be in display in the next 2 months, two and a bit months or whatever, man. So yeah, just if you're a person that likes combat sports, you're a fan of MMA, and you fucking get on board, man. Get yourself to some of these events and tune in, because you're watching like some high level mixed martial arts, and the talent is going to be insane. So yeah, just super stoked. I'm very excited to watch all the fights we got coming up regionally.
I gotta watch it, you never know what might stop you. Here I am, climbing up, feeling great, getting love. Here I go, risk it all.